episode of Bat Disrupt, where we talk about disruption and innovation across all sectors of real estate. I'm Dominic Cousins, here with Matt Breitenbach, and of course, our special guest today, Leonard Steinberg, also the head of the Leonard Steinberg Team here in New York City, one of the top teams in the country, but also the chief evangelist at Compass. Thank you for being here with us.
Thank you for having me.
So before we kick off in this exciting conversation, why don't you tell us a little bit about where we are right now? We're in Tridai.
Correct, and Tridai is the name we gave this neighborhood because it's a beneficiary of three neighborhoods, Tribeca, South Street Seaport, and the Financial District. And the building was designed by Rochester Harbour, Sir Richard Rogers, or is it Lord Richard Rogers? Sir Richard Rogers. He designed one Hyde Park, one Monte Carlo, and also the Pompidou is a world-class architect, and this building is just opening up now for delivery. It's been an overnight success. It's taken 9 years to develop.
Oh,
but it's a true architectural gem on possibly one of the most beautiful little brackets of architectural magnificence across from the Woolworth building across from City Hall. So really kind of where New York all began is where we're heading back to.
I love it. As a New Yorker, this is pretty cool. It's an awesome spot to be. Well, thank you for being here with us.
Thank you.
And before we kick off, asking you about some things in particular, love to get into about your daily contemplation. This is what you put out every single day, rain or shine, holiday, whatever it is. You pen an email to, and you can tell us, to an audience of X every single day for how many years?
8 years and 6 months, 365 days of the year.
Wow.
The ramblings of a lunatic.
It's disruptive in a sense to get that from someone in your brokerage and just have that constant communication. It makes a big difference. Rain or shine, getting your email. It's your morning reading for me. It's amazing.
Well, for me, it was a very important part starting out at Compass 8 years and 7 months ago, because I felt it was necessary to communicate to the entire company and keep us unified. It was a 50-person company back then. And of course, it's since grown a wee bit since then. But what was most important to me was it spoke to culture, it spoke to our profession, it spoke to the properties that we have. So the email comprises a wave of facts and detail and data about what's happening in the real estate or real estate related sphere that helps agents actually source from that to share with their clientele to elevate the dialogue that we put out into the marketplace. But then we feature 6 listings to showcase who's selling what for what, where around the country. And then the last thing is I do an essay on a topic that I feel is a hot topic of the day. Obviously, I have a lot of opinions.
Which I love. That's my favorite part. I love the honesty.
It educates those who don't know. It reminds experienced agents like you who do know but like to get into the topic.
Sure.
And it is also a great cultural builder for the entire company. It also unifies us on a daily basis. And to me, it is low tech, but it's the ultimate combination of high tech and high touch, because there's actually a human voice behind it.
Sure.
Someone who's actually in the trenches, not just pretending to be. And I think it's been enormously beneficial to us. It gets out to about 50,000 people every day.
Wow. So, we hear so much right now in the press and in the headlines, ChatGPT, OpenAI. Are you using any type of AI or tech to help you put this out in a disruptive way? But 2, I also think what's neat is you're kind of going the other way. You're writing it yourself every single day.
Well, I think what's most important about this email is that it feels to everyone who reads it as if it's an authentic voice, mostly because of the grammatical and spelling errors, although I do have a checking system for that now to improve it.
All right.
We struggle with that ourselves.
I also then do a voiceover, so for those who are driving around in the car and don't have time to sit and read, it allows them to listen to it, or if they're on the gym and at the gym and they're working out, they can hear it too. But there are some tech elements to what I do, but I don't use any AI. I do have alerts for news items so that I am tuned in, so that I don't have to read everything from beginning to end. But look, it's tech and high touch, but no AI, because I do feel this requires absolute authenticity. And I do think it has great value in that it's coming from someone within the Compass community, not someone from out there somewhere.
Sure. So you came to Compass. You quickly became the president of Compass. Was at that time Urban Compass.
Correct.
Right?
It was Urban Compass.
And now you are the chief evangelist
Yes.
at Compass. So maybe if you could just before we again jump into it, tell us, what does that mean? You know, how has that role shifted for you? It's disruptive in its own right, certainly within real estate. Maybe you could speak to that a little bit.
Well, I always joke that the real estate industry needs someone to forgive everyone for their bad behaviors on a daily basis. But aside from that, I started as company president when it was a 50-person entity. And when it grew and multiplied into multiple areas, we did presidents in every different part of the country because it was growing at great speed. And I never was in the managerial or administrative role ever. It was always advisory and trying to instill the culture of what the company should be.
Thank you for that insight. It's an inspiring time. Here we are at Compass. It's a disruptive time in 2023. Maybe you could speak to a little bit about what is your team maybe deploying right now in the marketplace that maybe could be disruptive and innovative in its own right? You know, maybe it's something you guys feel like you have an IP on, or is it something you're doing tactical, different than other teams? Is there anything you could speak to in that regard?
Look, I've always felt that innovation is a critical component in any industry you're in. And the minute you stop innovating and growing is the minute you're stagnating. I always look to nature for answers, and the answers are very clear. You neglect something and it dies. So growth and innovation have always been a critical component to everything we do within the team. We were actually the first team to have our own website 20-something years ago.
Wow.
We had this is one thing, you know, we get stupid when you're too early. We actually had a site called luxuryreel.com, which was all about videos and, you know, doing what everyone is doing today. And this was 10 years ago at least. And we do something that has evolved from being just a print medium as the world evolved, called Luxury Letter. It goes out to about 15,000 people every month, either in print and or digital. That gets multiplied and now through social media gets rebroadcast.
How is that received?
It's one of the best advertising tools ever, because what it does is it showcases how we showcase property. It provides information. And I've always felt that gift marketing is the best of all. When you give without expecting instant returns, and if you do so regularly and consistently in a quality manner, people look at you and say, that's a professional. And I think that has fueled our business probably more than anything. But then we do all the other stuff, and I've evolved, you know, reporting now, where I do this weekly video, and I hate being on video. I hate it.
Oh, come on.
Pretty good.
Come on.
But I do it because when I don't do this here on camera, the engagement is significantly less. People want a personal touch, but there again, that is high-tech, high-touch.
Yes.
Where you have the high touch of a human and the high-tech of its distribution system.
Yeah, I think it is personal. I think it's, you know, I noticed that in listing videos, right? If we're on it or you're walking somebody through, so they want to get to know you. And that's why even starting this whole conversation with your letter that you send out every day, right? Having that touch, you know, personal relationship. You know, people that might even not met you before, like, feel like they know you. And me and Dom even, you know, we discussed off camera before, like having great discussions. You know, and I feel like people get to understand us a little bit, you know, trying to be thought leaders, understand who we are, these things that we're really passionate about, our ethos of us as people through the video.
Well, you know, one of the best business books I've ever read that I actually didn't read was, because I just was like, I can't read another book, I've read too many books about business. But it was the best title. It said, it's not business, it's personal.
Yeah.
And that is so true, because you can have all the technology in the world, and it's critically important to be accurate and efficient. And that is where I think technology is most necessary.
Yeah.
And that's one of the principles I really felt was most important when I met with Robert and Ori, you know, 9 years ago this month.
I always want to know a little bit of that story. I've always, like, I was telling them, I was like, we're meeting with Leonard, like, what was that like? Like, walk us through a little bit of like that meeting or taking that meeting or that time, that season, how you make that decision, you know, one of the wheelers and dealers in New York or what you were doing at the time, you know, just definitely a company that's disrupted and you lead in that charge, and just how did you make that decision? It's really interesting.
Well, the only reason they got me to the table was because they offered food. So they invited me for breakfast, and I always felt that I'd known Urban Compass, and I thought they were actually being very revolutionary in what they were doing. They were doing very much what Redfin is doing now, which is that, you know, the algorithm and data and tech, and then salaried employees filling in these roles. And I hated the concept, because I truly believe that if you don't embrace the entrepreneurial spirit of individual agents and teams, they are not motivated to do the work that we do every day, which is brutal. And I'm not going to whine and complain about that.
Yes.
But to me,
Touché.
it's a tough job,
It
and
is.
it's emotionally draining.
Oh, yeah.
And the technology I was used to back then, I could tell was falling way behind other industries.
Yes.
And I saw these two people who really understood technology, understood business, and I said, if they can infuse great technology that combines high tech and high touch so that the human element is not withdrawn, then maybe I could help build this company to be a competitor, because everyone at that time was competing with one another without seeing how these outside entities were coming in, offering this like, we'll do it for free.com real estate, and the quality of that service was atrocious. So I've always focused in my career not on the transaction exclusively, and I think too many people are
I like that.
obsessed with transactions.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
It's, to me, all about an advisory role that starts well before transaction occurs, provide extraordinary service during the transaction, and then forever afterwards. Because our role is a very serious role. And when someone says, I like real estate, it's so much fun, I'm
Yeah.
like, yes, you can make it fun.
Yeah.
And I think it should be fun. But at the same time, you're dealing with a very, very serious and highly emotional subject matter. And it's not just about the transaction. Sometimes it's not the right time to transact. So when you act in the interests, if you act in the best interests of the consumer,
Yeah.
you will always be successful.
Yes.
And at the time when I met Robert and Ori in 2014 in January for breakfast at Cook Shop in West Chelsea,
Yeah.
Nice.
which was nothing back then,
Yeah.
I said, if we act in the best interest of the consumer, which I believe is high tech with great agents so that the human element is there, then you will succeed.
Yeah.
And they bought into it.
Disruptive. That was certainly a disruptive component.
But you know, the word disruptive to me sometimes is skewed or muddied with revolution.
Yeah.
And so often we were asked in the beginning, where's the revolution? Show us the revolution. And I was like, I don't like revolutions.
Yeah.
Revolutions have blood and guts and gore and
Yeah.
death and destruction. But if you are consistent and repeat evolutionary steps, over time they add up to peaceful revolutions.
Yeah.
And peaceful revolutions are always for the better. Bloody revolutions are for power and ego
Right.
and hunger. And this is a very, very different type of company.
You're not beating your chest. Viva la Compass!
But we always,
Although,
That's okay.
I mean, we always talked about, we've seen some of these inroads on different episodes of Disrupt, but like, disruption for good.
Disruption
right?
for
And
good,
making
right.
things better. And that's like, we talked a little bit of that off camera too, about making things better, trying to elevate the industry. And I never listened to you speak. It was the first Compass retreat I went to in DC. And you talked a lot about that, elevating the industry and that stuff. And, we actually just talked that with Ian Slater as well, another guest on the show, about elevating
Definitely.
the industry, right?
Yeah.
Went to Brown, not really the segue that you see. I've
Thinking
met,
about being in the CIA.
yeah,
Yeah.
I've met great conversations, went to Harvard, did an hour in this industry, right? Like you are attracting that. There's like this new generation coming into it too. And it seems like the industry Encompass is a company a lot of people want to hitch to,
well, this is important because Robert and Ori and I all believed, and Robert actually started out with this philosophy, what can we fix out in the marketplace?
Sure.
And real estate was a hot topic that needed fixing. More importantly, when he had done the research amongst a wide consumer base of our type of clients who are wealthier, people who can afford a home, we don't realize are wealthier people. People who can afford homes in New York, Manhattan, the Hamptons, they're rich. On world standards, they're rich. And the two things that came out of his research were that it's way too complicated and messy and, somehow it's got to be simplified.
Sure.
And then the other thing that came out was that the attitudes of agents and the attitudes of the business were very disheartening and rude or inefficient, uninformed guessing, etc., etc.
talk about
So,
that.
my brain is like smaller than a pea.
Yeah.
But because in the left hand I have my iPhone that has all the facts and data that I need in case I need to check them, boom, it's right there. And that's when high technology really starts to work. It is something that's happening in every other industry. So in real estate, we were way behind.
Yeah.
And I got into terrible trouble in 2018. There was a big article in Inman how I annoyed everyone because I said, before Compass, people rarely spoke about tech. And in reality, between 2016 and 2018, the volume of investment in real estate technology multiplied by 600%,
Oh, it
I
went
think.
crazy, yeah.
So that was why I wrote about it. Of course, everyone was like, how dare you? And you know what? If you look today, there's not a single residential real estate brokerage that doesn't place technology at the forefront of
You
what
also
it
had
is.
ones going on record, not to name names, but I won't, but like saying, oh, we're not a brokerage, we sell
We're
real
a
estate.
tech
No, we're not,
company.
yeah, we're not a tech company, we sell real estate. And
Right.
then like a couple years later, like, oh, we're investing in prop tech at the same time. So it's like,
But
you
it's
know,
interesting, a
yeah.
lot of the things we did way early on that we
Yeah.
were beaten up for are now things that are mainstream in real estate, not to mention the copying of the marketing.
Oh,
and
I
the-
said they flipped the table on the whole industry, Compass, and that's what drew me to them too. Like they were trying to do things so much better, try to make things, bring it in modern, it's like bringing in outside, also talent, like the talent level that they brought into as
But
employees.
quality, hiring
Yeah.
the best agents like yourself
Yes.
to drive this narrative forward so that the blood, guts, and gory doesn't happen,
Yeah.
so that it's elegant. And it's a form of elegant aggression that was needed in our sphere to elevate our profession.
Yeah.
We still have a way to go.
Yes, yes.
But I do think we have played an important role as individual agents, as teams, and as a company
Yeah.
in moving that forward quite notably. And I think some people are angry at us, but they're mostly the heads of the brokerages. The agents themselves love us.
Yeah.
Agents around the country and around the world love what Compass did in its impact on this profession.
No, it was amazing what it's done in a great way.
With the theme of moving things forward, what are you seeing in the market now in the business of real estate as the top disruptor?
I think one of the big disruptions I'm seeing right now that I think is potentially unhealthy is a trend that I experienced way back when I was a little bit too arrogant. When I, maybe like 20 years ago, I formed a team, which was early for teams, and I called it the Luxury Loft Team. And everything I did was luxury loft, luxury loft, luxury loft, everything. Luxury loft, everything. And I used that as my marketing. And you know what? I built up a good following. And I would say that several thousand people recognized who that was. But when I put luxury loft with my brokerage, millions of people recognized who I was. And I think there is a growing trend right now for some teams to appear as if they're these like completely devoid entities out there on their own. And frankly, if I was the consumer, I would be scared of that.
Yeah.
Because I think when it comes to the legalities and the complexities and the backup support that every brokerage needs, I think these little brokerages without any kind of brand behind them feels very bad for the consumer and confusing to the consumer. And whenever you confuse the consumer, they bite back because someone will step in and make it simpler for them. So for me, the Leonard Steinberg team of Compass, when I wear this t-shirt, the volume of people who recognize this name compared to Leonard Steinberg is like day and night.
Yeah.
So I see a true value to having the attachment of the brand to my team name because it's multiplied exposure and name recognition on a level I never thought possible. You know, I think Compass as a brand is historically the fastest established luxury real estate brand in history. Think about it. Can you think of another one?
No.
I haven't been able to find one. In
Good
fact,
data point.
I haven't even found a luxury product that in less than 10 years, because remember Luxury Loft, at least, Luxury Loft, there I go again. Compass as a brand name started in 2015. So Compass's brand name is only 8 years old.
Yeah.
There is not another luxury brand name I know that established itself that broadly. You know, $250 billion worth of sales in 2021, that's an astounding number. I never thought I'd be able to say that number.
And I love how they pinpointed like also like a luxury to ultra luxury, mid luxury market, right? Where they always wanted to stand out in that segment, being the Apple of that space, right?
Well, you know what? This is my biggest lesson I feel I need to remind myself of. Luxury
Means a
is
lot,
the
yeah.
experience. It's not just a price point.
Yeah.
And I have found some of my clients who bought apartments way back when or rented something way back when turned into major clients. And had I been an arrogant snob and said, I don't deal with that price point, or that's not luxury. Well, I promise you at that moment in time, that was an enormous luxury to that client.
Yeah.
And when people dismiss that and say, I don't like that.
Yeah.
I mean, I look at Tiffany. If I walk into Tiffany and buy a key ring, I still get the blue box I would get if I'm buying a $10 million diamond.
Sure.
I want that experience. I deserve it as the consumer.
Yeah.
Sure. Well, we're also talking about consistency and doing things the right way. So we talked about where the business, when you got into it, where it was, where it is. 5 net years from now, where do you see the business?
Well, I think the amount of stimulus we've seen in the economy in the last 3 years has been extraordinary, $5 trillion. But I think it pales in significance to the transfer of wealth stimulus that's coming over the next 20 years. $68 trillion will be coming into our economy as baby boomers and the greater generation pass on their wealth to their kids and their grandkids. The volume of wealth that is coming to the world, whether it's a $50,000 inheritance or a $50 million inheritance, is going to fuel our markets way beyond our comprehension. Mm-hmm. And I believe the luxury markets, especially because unfortunately, or fortunately, whichever way you look at it, the wealth is highly concentrated. Fortunately, the wealthy group is growing more, and I do think this diversification of assets and redistribution of wealth will make that grow even further and spread the wealth around more, which I think is a good thing. But the demands on our inventory have been grossly underestimated.
Right.
And the demands of this client who wants the best of the best in only 1 or 2 locations is a real challenge.
I compare it to a traffic jam because we have clients in the Hamptons that maybe want to move to Greenwich or whatever. And it's like in every these markets, there's issues right now with inventory and trying to find the...
It is the biggest issue. And then the bigger issue is that people do not want to spend 2 years of their lives doing a renovation, which is probably where some of the greatest values lie. But time is the last luxury, and if you're really rich, you don't mind paying for your time, and if you're saving time, you'll pay for it in a house.
Speaking of time, before we let you go, as it relates to the business of real estate, is there anything that keeps you up at night?
You know, I hate to admit it, but I sleep really well.
You are the chief evangelist. So
you know what, I will tell you, I don't boast about anything in my career, and I could say I'm number one and all that other stuff, but I never say I'm number one because I've always felt my clients are number one. They are number one. But to me,
which is great.
The only thing I will boast about is that I can honestly say to anyone starting in this business or building a career that you can be ethical, kind, empathetic, honest. Those are the hallmarks of what I do in business. And you can be successful. And unfortunately, our business still celebrates and messages too often some of the players in our business who are not those things and who do some really awful practices just because they sell lots or because they're on some show.
Yeah.
That to me is not a good role model for the next generation. So I think the future of real estate will be people promoting the concept of ethical behaviors because, again, it goes back. That is in the best interest of the consumer. And if you do what's in the best interest of the consumer, you will be successful and we will have a future. I also think brokers and the real estate profession, if they focus on non-Googleable insights and time-saving tools for the consumer, will have a career forever.
Yeah, it's very competitive. I mean, I've been doing this since 2006, watching the industry evolve so much in that time, as you've been in it a good amount of time too, and seeing, you know, I feel like it's more competitive now in a lot of ways than it's been in a long time, because you have these young upstarts, like even the messages I getting these messages on Instagram from 22-year-old kids that want to get in the industry. I never saw that. Like, it's been amazing. But again, before we let you go, I always like to ask a funny question or a more personal question. Say we're going out tonight after Disrupt, we let you out. Where are we going? What are we doing? What's the plan? What's our night going to look like? If we say, all right, Leonard, let's go out.
Well, for you guys who are in your, 30s?
I'm turning 40 in a month, so I'm getting
your night is going to be different to mine. Okay.
Well, Leonard night. I want the experience.
I will send you gladly along the way, but my night that you will have tonight, I've done 20 years ago.
Yeah.
My night tonight would be a very quiet dinner where the music isn't too loud so I can hear what people are saying. Maybe I'd go to Perry Street with Jean George or something quiet, have a good meal.
Love it.
Keep it simple, but I am up very early in the morning and I do need my sleep to look this extraordinarily rested.
It was amazing, Leonard. So great having you and love having this conversation.
Yeah, thank you so much for being here.
Guys. Congrats with all your success.
Oh,
Thank you, and same to you, and good luck with the new construction you have going on personally, and we hope to have you on again. Thank you so much.
Thanks,
Leonard. That's awesome.
Thank you. Thank you.
You're good.